Hello and welcome to the New School HR podcast. This is episode 9 of season 2, titled Pay. So, we're nearing the end of season 2, and I thought it was probably about time to talk about the thing that we all go to work for, the thing that we all do things for: money, moolah, pay. So, why do we come to work? This is what would seem like a straightforward question, but not necessarily always the case. So maybe 99% of the time is to earn money, but not everyone comes to work for money. And I think it's quite important to understand this. So there are people who choose to be in a job, sometimes to get out the house, as almost like a hobby. In some instances, you have people who are in a job purely to fund something specific. So I worked with someone who was in a business for many years and literally only there to pay for their children's education in terms of university fees and stuff. Never actually had to do that either, but that's what they were doing. So it's quite important to understand what people come to work for. And I think it's quite important that you understand how to manage those people, or how to work with those people who don't come to work for money. How do you set them objectives? How do you motivate them? Not that I cover that in this topic, to be fair, but it's just to make you aware that not everyone comes to work for money. It's probably really important to identify those people quite early on. So you'll know that because you'll have people who will literally just tell you that. The other thing to know is that sometimes the person that you have in your employment isn't the main earner in the house either. So that's quite important to understand as well, especially for your managers. The reality is you can try your best to try and get that person's buy-in, but if the main owner of the house is required to do something, then, the reality is the person who isn't the main owner is going to be the one 9 times out of 10 who's going to sacrifice something. So different motivations for everyone, why they come to work. I think those who, actually I'm coming to it after, so I won't keep going. Right, so there are those who are bonus driven. So those who will take maybe what perceives to be a low base or even a high base, but actually they want to earn more. They want to earn their 5%, 10% more of salary, commission based. So it's important to understand these individuals as well. And it's also important to understand that sometimes when you hire for roles, so for example, if you're hiring for what could be perceived as a sales role, if you're not competitive in terms of understanding what drives those who are top in that role, like for the sales execs or something like that, those kind of roles, development managers, if you don't have a suitable bonus for them, you're not really going to get the, You're not going to get the full attention, or you won't have them for long because someone else will come in with a bonus that's going to take them away. So it's very important that you understand the market you're in when you're recruiting for a role, and it's important that you understand your complete compensation position. So what is the total reward package? We cover that in season 3. The other thing is to be honest. So when you're talking about pay at recruitment stage, or you're talking about pay to your internal colleagues or whoever, it's important that you're clear on your position. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of those who don't advertise salaries or don't disclose. The first company I worked for, it was there in your face. It was like it was on the canteen wall. You could see exactly everyone's rate, everyone's grade. And so for me, I saw that as something that you could sort of use as a motivator. As I've come out of that business, no one else has done it. So I'm a bit confused about that myself. I still think that if I was going to be somewhere, I would want that clear transparency, and I'd want that almost money roadmap, if you like, where people could, know exactly what it is they're aiming for. Otherwise, what are you aiming for? I mean, in my most recent place, somebody asked me and they said, I don't know what the rate is, so how do I know that I'm suitable for this role? And I thought that is a very fair question. I touched on it very briefly around total reward, but do be aware for each role what that is, especially in HR, because you're going to have to know how it works. So 9 times out of 10, a company will have a reward package linked to a grade. So for example, it might be that if you're a grade, I don't know, B, you automatically get a car allowance, you automatically get healthcare, etc., etc. So it's quite important to know that too. Those who don't need money, so I've sort of touched on it, but you need to make sure that they understand that people are here to earn money, and that, if they want to be part of the role, they still can be managed. Not being in a workplace for money doesn't mean you're exempt from being managed or being treated like everyone else. And, I'll be honest, I'm one of those people. If somebody has that approach with me, I'm quite happy to say, well, that's fine, that's up to you. You either be here and you work to the conditions that everyone else works to, or, it's up to you what you want to do. If you I've had people say to me, I earn more than you'll earn this year. That's cool. Up to you to be here, but while you are here, unfortunately, I'm the person that's assigning you duties, etc. So it's up to you, mate. It's I think if I had the kind of money that some people talk to me about, I definitely would not be hanging about with me. But there we go. So the really touchy subject, especially if you're a HR advisor or a HR business partner, or you just happen to be in HR and payroll's not in the same building, deductions and additions. Yes, we love a deduction, don't we? So the one key critical thing is to make sure that any deductions are explained to the employee. I think that's probably the most categorically clear I've been in the whole podcast that I've been doing. They need to understand. Now, whoever's responsibility that is in your organization, make sure they understand this and make sure that they do it timely. I have seen instances where people have got zero pay, and I can't lie to you, it's become my fault, even though I know fuck all about it. So payroll people out there, tell your HR business partner and tell the manager as well, because we got this thing in it. I don't know, I'm not anti-payroll, let me just put it out there, but some of these fuckers don't tell no one nothing. So the manager doesn't know, I don't know, and then one of me or the manager gets a phone call saying no pay. How the fuck would I know? We have this whole thing that HR business partners are supposed to be on top of absence and all that. Now, I think it depends on what organization you're in, but for me, that's not been the case. So, look, if there's going to be a zero pay, I personally think it's payroll's responsibility to communicate that message. They are payroll. Key part, payroll. But at least tell the manager. I don't mind getting caught out, but I don't think it's fair on a manager if they have no idea and nobody's told them. Because, that manager might be a regional manager or something and they have absolutely zero awareness of that being the case. So how do they get around it? With regards to things like sick pay and stuff like that, obviously understand what the position is on policy and keep it to policy. There are going to be instances where you maybe going to have to go around that. So say, for example, if you got a terminal illness or something, you might choose to opt to extend sick pay. I have in the past requested extensions for those who have really long service and have never been off sick and actually they're just unwell. We did that for somebody in my previous place. They'd given 30 years service. Not one instance of sickness. Not one in 30 years. So when they were sick and it was quite serious, then personally I felt the right thing to do was support them, and luckily the business agreed. But obviously you're going to have to confirm sort of conditions, if you like. So this was on a review a monthly review, and it was obviously us catching up about how treatment and stuff was going. So it's always important to understand that. If something has missed the payroll cutoff, tell motherfuckers. Payroll, if you know something's missed the payroll cutoff, tell motherfuckers. No one tells no one nine, Everyone's just supposed to guess. So, yes, we have the emails that say this is when the payroll cutoff is, etc., etc. But we all know there them exception them there. Like, I can't be dealing with it sometimes. This is life. Sometimes it misses cutoff. And payroll, guys, if it misses cutoff, don't be difficult about shit all the time. Sometimes we know you got extra time to do it. And, I've seen payroll people in the past who just would refuse to support the cause, and the employee suffers, and then the relationship between the business and the employee suffers. And then when we have to do something different to resolve the situation, that becomes a fucking problem too. So it's like, yeah, just help the team, payroll. We're customer facing at times. Like, okay, there are payroll departments that are customer facing, so I get that. But not all of them, from what I've seen. And if you're not, think about the guys that have to deliver the message because you couldn't be fucking bothered to literally do 2 minutes of something. And I'm sorry, I've done payroll, yeah? Like, that's the other thing. I've done payroll, I've done the administration, I've done the amendments, the adjustments, whatever. And some of these things we're talking about are not hourly, like an hour task. They're not having it. So those that I know specifically are just a couple of minutes. I always push on it. I don't care. There's this whole thing about, I remember one time, you can see I'm quite passionate about it. It upsets me. One time a payroll manager, they said to me that they couldn't do this specific thing and that it would take literally like the whole afternoon. And unfortunately for them, I had access to the system and I literally just did it myself in approximately all of 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And the 2 minutes was because I didn't have a fucking password. So let's think about it when we start throwing our own team under the bus. The other thing is, I don't understand about payroll. They talk about errors and they talk about like it's such a high rate. And I remember somebody telling me that I had such a high rate of payroll queries in my area. So I was like, okay. Bearing in mind that my area had 500 people. So in a rolling 4-month period, I had approximately 3 queries. Let that sink in. So 4 months, 500 people, that's 2,000 opportunities for it to go wrong. We had 3. But apparently I had a high rate. And then the other thing, the fucked up thing is obviously they didn't like me. And I found out that other areas had more. And actually, of the 3 that I had, I have a reason to believe that some of them were actually payroll's fault. Anyway, so there we go. And if you're listening to this, I couldn't give a fuck because we know who each other is if you're listening to this. The aim is to avoid pay queries. And I get it. There are times when we don't help and the managers don't help payroll. I put my hands up. I've done it recently. I've been aware of a situation and I've erred on the side of caution, so therefore I haven't submitted something and it's led to an overpayment. Like, let's not beat around the bush. These things happen. The mistake I made was I didn't actually notify someone. I didn't give someone a heads up, so maybe perhaps they could have facilitated looking out for something. So there's always a learning on both sides, right? But it's about how you work in conjunction. And it's at the end of the day, it's about the end user experience and it's about their understanding and them having the right person to challenge. Because I think that's the other piece. The worst thing is to have a pay discrepancy. The worst thing is to have a pay discrepancy and not know who to talk to or where to go. That's what I think. So the kinds of pay issues that you generally get are the following: overtime, annual leave, authorized leave, sick, premium payments, bonuses, short time. That's when your motherfucker goes 7 minutes overtime in terms of lateness and then they get like 20 minutes deducted. So look, the key thing is ensure constant communication, ensure availability, and allow people to ask the fucking questions. So the next thing to talk about is bonus. Bonus. So I'm just going to cover a couple of sort of key points about bonus. Now, this isn't about creating a bonus. This isn't about the parameters and all that kind of stuff. This is just an overview in terms of a payroll sort of process and the sort of very brief experiences captured. I've done more so now in my current role in terms of creating and all that, but I just wanted to touch on it. It might be a separate podcast on its own. So in terms of the moment of time, so the first thing is the bonus achievable? So if you're HR, do understand this, especially if it's something that you're going to use as a recruitment tool or as a engagement tool. These are tools that we use. The first company I worked for, massive retailer, used to change the parameters of their bonus like every fucking year and made it almost impossible to achieve that £120 for the year. I mean, the size of the company and all that's a substantial amount of money, so maybe that's why. But if it's an internal bonus that isn't part of a massive company, the first thing to think about is the difficulty and doesn't need adjusting. Having a bonus scheme that is just unachievable. I mean, guys, we're in HR, right? How achievable are our bonuses? Let's think about it. In my whole HR career, I've had approximately one. And that was a bribe. I'm joking, that wasn't a bribe. Maybe it was. No, that was weird. But the reality, the reality is we don't get bonuses despite whatever. So, as a HR person, you ever gone to a job and thought, yeah, I'm here to get my 10% bonus, and actually that's something I'm going to plan to use the following year? Probably not. What are the scheme rules? You have to understand this. This is very key. And you have to understand what the sort of, in terms of applying those scheme rules, what the sort of legacy is as well. So if there's been a challenge by someone and it's been totally dismissed in terms of the rules and stuff, you need to know this and you need to know what the exceptions are. Scheme rules are there for a reason. Now, scheme rules can be adjusted, but it has to have notice, and the new sort of targets and all that has to be refreshed. So it's not as simple as just saying that the scheme rules have changed. Usually it's written into contracts or it's a document that's given out every year. And unless that document has been replaced, that's what everyone's working to. And the thing is to understand with this, especially in a sales-heavy environment, if you set the parameters, for example, around attrition customers and keeping the accounts going, that's what your salespeople are going to do. If you do it as new business, then that's what your salespeople are going to do. And if that's what they've been targeted for the year, it's going to be very difficult to make them draw away from that position in order to, do whatever the business needs if their 10% of salary is dependent on that. So think about it when you're doing these things, or have it written in that these can be reviewed or subject to change. So yeah. When is the bonus paid? This is quite a key thing as well to understand. And the reason being is in terms of if somebody leaves. So you'll have rules around if somebody leaves and what happens, but you do need to understand when it's paid, because what I found in my last workplace was people would hang about for their bonus payment, and as soon as it was, they were gone. So that was pretty much your yearly restock for 2-3 years anyway, of the 5 that I was there. And leading on to that, when they do resign, you need to understand what the scheme rules are. So there are some which say there's no payment as soon as they resign, they don't get it. There's some that say that if they leave within a certain amount of time, they have to pay it back. It's important to understand these things. And it's also important, if you're doing performance management and for some reason the person's got a bonus due to them as well, that's quite important to know what those parameters are there as well. Your bonus appeal process. So I never really, I don't know, maybe I was lucky. I had a good finance person, so they always used to manage it quite well. But in terms of appeals, there will be mainly an appeal process that is set out. And it is very important to understand what that appeal process is and what the parameters are, and the sort of consequences, if you like, of not following that. And like deadlines and submissions and what information is required, who is actually going to deal with the challenge, who it needs to be raised to. These are all things you need to understand. I take it for granted, but when I did get involved with challenges and stuff, it was very difficult for me because I didn't fully understand. So do get an understanding of that. Like where I am now, I fully understand it. It's quite simple. There is no challenges. But there you go. And then I'll be honest, the other thing as well, in the first company I worked for, I remember there was a sales target across the whole sort of branch, if you like. And you had a sales target for the year, and we one year missed it by 37 pence, and we still didn't get the bonus. Like, they didn't allow it. They were like, no, you didn't hit. It was like 37p. I could literally buy a can of Coke right now, and that would be double the 37p. No. So you need to understand. That's when I said about previously what are the sort of legacy exceptions and stuff like that. It is important to know. The other thing is, what is the actual value of the bonus? So we talk in percentages, but it's quite important as well that you understand what the percentage is in pound notes, because a lot of people just go by, oh, it's such and such percent. Understand the pound note value, because if you tell someone 3% of their annual earnings and that equates to like 100 quid, this is what the first company was pretty bad at. You had a lot of part-timers not earning a lot of money. They used to really try and G it up, but trying to tell someone that they have the potential to earn 60 quid at the end of the year doesn't do a lot. You can try and spin it on its head all you want. And, there was this whole thing about, your teammates will get more. They'll get 400. So, look, I remember when I was like 19 and I'm getting told, you'll get like, I think my bonus if I achieve was something stupid like 47 quid. And they were like, but think about your colleagues, they'll get £400. Think about what they can do. The fuck? I don't want to think about what they can do. I want to cut that. Yeah, 40 quid. I can just about buy a PlayStation 3 game. That's where we're at. I can buy a PlayStation 3 game. Good stuff. Guaranteed bonuses. Oh, we all love a guaranteed bonus, don't we? First of all, find that fucking letter and understand it. So the letter that gets issued, and there's usually a set of rules as well. Learn it. Secondly, do not use that as a fucking tool of retention. That is the worst thing you could do. Genuinely. I hated it. But there you go. That's me. If you are using a retention bonus, understand why and what the sort of objectives are, if there is any, because, I've seen it used like you might move a manager who's guaranteed to hit a bonus. So like in the last business I worked for, it was business areas, and you got people who are guaranteed to get their bonus, and for some people you're talking about 20k or something. And we have made a business decision to remove that person from that place, to put them somewhere where there's an issue. So if that's the case, is it fair to them that, they miss out on their bonus? Probably not. I would suggest it's not fair. So that's a fair enough response, but you'd still want to set some sort of target in there. The other thing around retention is if the person leaves, so if you did it to retain someone, which is what I'm against, you need to know what the period of sort of clawback is. So what that means is if they've been paid the bonus and they say, for example, it's 6 months clawback, they leave within 6 months, they have to pay it all back. So just try and understand what those are. But like I say, guaranteed bonus, piss poor tool to use. That's what I meant to say. So that leads in nicely to salary increases. Again, do we always get one of those? So I'm going to cover it in the sort of following headings. And look, there's more, yeah? This is just what I've captured for the purpose of the podcast. So, annual reviews. So that's the first thing. So, first of all, if it's an annual company-wide review, it's usually, well, it is going to be an agreed percentage across the whole business. Now, there's going to be exceptions to that, but let's just take it as it is. First thing is, ensure those who won't get a pay rise are notified in writing. Yeah? This is very important. I've seen year on year when people who don't get pay rises are not aware because they've hit an absence trigger, a disciplinary trigger, whatever it might be. So they don't get it and nobody tells them and they're expecting their 3%. 3, not 30. I don't know how that came across. It meant to be 3. That's piss poor. That seems to be the theme along with me and money, right? Piss poor. Anyway, that's not good. And it's a very difficult situation to handle when potentially you got a business area which maybe has like 7 people and 6 of them get a pay rise and 1 doesn't. So ensure that it's communicated ahead of the pay rise or the communications that are going to go out business-wide to sort of celebrate this fact. Obviously, explain why they're getting this pay rise. So that's quite key. And one of the things I thought was really good in the last company was they would articulate in numbers, what it means and how much the pay rise costs across the whole business. And they did this is how much of the profit. They were quite good like that, to be fair, in terms of like sharing what was going on. I mean, I remember seeing things like not just pay rises, but other investments, if you like. So yeah, that's a good way of doing it. And the first company I did, they also did the same thing. I mean, they were a massive company, so of course they did it well, but yeah. The next one is the agreed gradual targets. So if there's somebody who's been promoted into a role and you don't think they're quite up to it, you might sit with that person's line manager and suggest that instead of giving them the full whack, you set them objectives that they have to achieve, and then you review their success against objectives, and then they unlock potentially the lower tier. So I use this quite a lot in the last company because we used our talent pool, if you like, and also we were going through a transformation, and there were new standards all the time. So instead of just like listing someone who was a potential, which is true, they were, and setting them up to fail, because sometimes if you're paying someone, say for example 50k, the expectation is they deliver a 50k job, and the reality is sometimes you might have taken that person from a 30k job. And so giving them the opportunity and sometimes not giving them the full whack takes a bit of pressure off as well. So it's worth thinking about that as well. Does that help the individual? But if you've got targets, then you can fully justify as well. And look, from a commercial point of view, sometimes we're talking about a saving of about 10 grand over the course of 6 months, maybe more than that. So it might be worthwhile. And if that buys that individual, like I say, a bit more time, because when you think about it, when you're taking a risk on someone, you're promoting them, you don't want them to fail. And I just find that when this kind of thing happens, it does make things a little bit easier, if you like, for that individual. The thing is, confirm this in writing at the time of offering them the new role. Now, we have to be mindful here. People get confused with this and the probation period. So for me, if somebody is promoted, you don't get a probation. You only have a probation once, which is when you start a new role. So you would look at a transition period, but for me, that transition period would involve training in the role. Now, if we're not training people in the role, how do we monitor their success? What are we giving them to succeed? So yeah, this is another reason why I use it as well. At least it gives everyone the targets clear from day one, and it's something to work towards. And actually, I find that if you do that, people generally will put their hand up and say, I need support or whatever. The pay rise request. So this is when someone asks for more money. So look, the first thing I would say, if you ain't going to do it, don't say you're going to do it. If you have to review it, give appropriate timescales. If it needs approval, explain that and explain the process that the person has to go through or you have to go through to request it. If somebody is threatening you with, no pay rise and I leave, then I think you need to make that decision quite quickly, whether or not you're prepared to pay that person that money or not. One of the worst things I find is when somebody says, look, I've been offered a role. No, actually, that's the next part. So the worst thing I find is somebody says, I want more money. I believe I'm worth more. And that person doesn't get the opportunity to demonstrate it. They're just told, yeah, we'll do that for you. And then nothing happens. And then when you ask for it, it's like, well, yeah. The fuck does that mean? Not that this has happened to me before. I mean, I'll be honest, in my last role, I was the least paid. I was actually underpaid by $5,000 from the advertised thing. They were very lucky because how they spun it with me was, you're new to the role, you're not from HR, etc., etc. It's your first time being regional. So, and the other thing is I actually didn't know that it was advertised at 30K because my wife actually applied for me. So for me at the time, what they offered was really good. It was a massive improvement on where I was, so I took it. But I did then find out that I was under the advertised rate. But then what I did find out as well is that others in the team were. So it wasn't specifically just for me. But what I also found out was that the person next to me, literally geographically, was on quite a bit more. And it was my belief that I was doing that person's job as well. So I asked the question. And I was told I was going to get. And I didn't. And I said, okay. And then, quite interestingly, I got offered a role within the actual business, which was for more. And I went to my line manager and I said, this is where I'm at. This is what's happening. This is why. And yeah, it all kicked off, bruv. That was a bit peak. And yeah, I got my pay rise. But, what I realized in that instance is that people are going to say shit to you. And it's up to you, though. Like, I'm always quite transparent with things, I guess, in terms of me and my expectations. So in the past, I have taken things on and I've said, I'm happy to do this, but I want the opportunity to, earn more or do more or bonus, whatever it might be. But I want to know the parameters. And if I don't get it, I want to know what I have to do to get it. So you do have the flexibility and approach as well of the individual. And the other piece is, look, if somebody asks you a pay rise and they're just not worth it, and that's what I'm saying, you just need to tell them that. The other thing is, what I have seen recently, so I have seen a member of staff, they've suggested that they can get more money elsewhere. Like, I've had that quite a lot. And I say to myself, okay, it's okay. If you're not the market leader in terms of salary, it's okay to not be. And there's no point trying to make out that you are, because at the end of the day, you won't be able to swing it. So I've openly said to people, look, this is where we are. If you believe you can get more for doing less, then that's your decision. We're not going to stop you. We don't stop anyone's progress. We're not asking you to leave. This is you having a conversation with us. And so sometimes having those conversations might seem difficult, but it's the reality, right? The counter offer. So, this is somebody comes to you with a resignation and they say, the reason for leaving is more money. So the first thing is, do they have proof of this contract, bruv? Because one of the things that was notorious in the previous workplace was people asking for more money because they had received an offer. And we never got proof. So that changed, and resignations went significantly down, or asking for money went significantly down, or those who had resigned, who actually then went on to leave, went down significantly. So that's quite a good tool. I quite like that, and I think that's fair at the end of the day. If you're going to say to someone, oh, I really want to be here, but they're offering me more, well, show us. And all this bullshit about, oh, I don't have to show you and all this and that, well, then we don't have to pay you more, innit? So, yeah. I think if you do get a resignation and you do get the proof of it, though, think about the negotiation. So it might not just be that you're going to give them all the money. You know, I have spoke to people in the past who have said, look, I know what they're offering me is stupid, but, you know, this is what they think I'm worth. I wouldn't mind if it goes up by. And, you know, sometimes they'll say even just 25% of what they've been offered. And I think the other thing is as well is that sometimes it's about using your experience in HR especially. So, you know, you'll know the bounce back rate and stuff like that. Like the last company I worked for, one of the competitors was just stupid. Like they'd literally just come in and offer like 20K, 10K more and then guaranteed bonuses and blah, blah, blah. And they were offering these to these like 26-year-olds and stuff. It was madness. And, you know, we lost some and some went on to do really, really well. But a lot didn't because of the expectation and the way they were managed. And, you know, sometimes it was about us saying, look, we know that we can't match that in terms of salary, but what we can offer you is a clear career path or training or development or support. Like, you know, this one that they would go to, they wouldn't have any of the infrastructure that we had. So it's about knowing what you have as well and knowing your audience, who you're talking to. Because yes, money is a great motivator, but sometimes it's about using your own example. So I'm quite fortunate, you know, I stayed in the first company I worked at for a very long time. Probably overstayed my welcome. Many times I got told I should be earning more money. But the reality was I never really looked, so I didn't really know. And then the other reality was that all the experience and stuff that I had from there, money couldn't buy. So there is a bit of that as well. And, you know, some of us in HR, we're not, look, I'm not being ageist, don't be a prick, but I'm not 40. So I can relate to some of the people I'm talking to about negotiations. You know, I was in the same school year as them and stuff. And it is about sometimes explaining to people that, you know, you saw everyone go on to do more, but you ended up doing more yourself anyway. So it's about sharing those things. But at the same time as well, you know, I'll be honest with someone. You got a family, you got whatever situation. We're not going to hold you back. Boy, I'm too emotional about money, you know. How's it like 37 minutes already in and I'm only on section 5? How many do we have? Oh, that's good, people. We only have 7 sections anyway, so that's cool. In fact, actually, we only have 6, so let's crack on. So the next part is the secondment stroke stepping up. I'm going to cover this off in one bit. So look, secondments. First of all, why? Why the fuck are we doing it? Usually it's going to be for maternity or it might even be a career break. So look, I always see maternity or career break or any sort of gap as an opportunity for someone else to be tested, if you like, or an experience for them to just gain experience, because you never know what opportunities you're going to have coming later on. Those individuals in those situations I just mentioned may not even return. So having someone fulfill the role, getting trained is a good thing. But, you know, if the other person comes back, then the next opportunity that comes in the building or the department, you got someone who's got some awareness of it. It's better than having no people with zero awareness. That's my personal opinion anyway. So look, the first thing is it a fixed term? So that's usually what it's going to be. It's going to be for a fixed term, or it might even be a rolling. The next thing is it a trial role? So I didn't know such thing existed until I created such thing. So I don't know if this is even a real thing. But what we sometimes did was, if we created a new role, instead of putting that person into it full time and then potentially losing that role because we were in a space of growth, etc., we made it a secondment role. So that guaranteed the person had a role to come back to. Now, the business that I was in was quite fortunate that they could do those kind of things. So what would happen is, say, for example, brand new role, we wasn't quite sure if it was going to work or not. Put someone who we thought would have scope for it, or at least would get some sort of development out of doing the role. And then, we do that for like 6 months. The backfill would be a role underneath, if you like. So then you just backfill it with either someone internally, so it might be a complete step ladder. So we did that many times. We used to have a term for it in London. I can't remember what it was. there was the shuffle, the regional shuffle. I think that's what we used to call it, where, there was a whole chain of events that would literally move people about the region. So sometimes a shuffle could move like 4 managers, if you like, and like 3 assistant managers, or a shuffle could literally just move 2 people. But anyway, you might do it as part of a shuffle, or you might, like I say, just be creating a new role, put it as a secondment for someone, let them get something out of it. Or, if it's a brand new role and you're just trialing it, you might just put it as a fixed-term contract and advertise it externally. But again, sometimes the last company I had, we had examples where employees made suggestions of new roles. And that used to be a great facilitation tool for that. Confirm it in writing and confirm the following. Please, guys, because it doesn't always happen. Duration and end date. End date is key. The targets, if there is. Pay, if there's an increase. And confirmation what they're going to return to, including the role they will return to and the pay level and benefits they will return to. This is very, very important, guys. Very, very important, guys. That's it. I can't elaborate on that anymore. Stepping up. So I've been a step up. How cool is that? So this is to cover a short-term gap. You would use it maybe on a rolling. This is probably more appropriate for using it on a rolling. You'd agree the amount, so it can be the full salary of the, what's the word? Previous incumbent? I don't know the correct term, I can't say it, but basically the previous person that had the role, whatever their salary was, it can be the full of that or it can be a percentage of that. The average is usually 80% of that pay. So what you'd find is that person would get, the person doing the step up would get a monthly supplement of, whatever that difference is on their current salary. And it would obviously be a different payment, which is good because then you can differentiate it from the actual salary. I think if you put it in as salary and you don't confirm it in writing or anything like that, that can be quite difficult. I think the other thing is with that step-up letter is to clearly outline what it is they're stepping into. So I see step-up letters that just say the role, but it doesn't give them a job description or something like that. So, if you're going to do that kind of thing, make sure there's a job description with it and make sure that they understand what they're getting into. So in my current place, we have some stepping up going on. And what we've done is we've actually interviewed them as if they were interviewing for the full role. So that's the first thing, to give them that sort of test. Because sometimes what you find is step-ups are just given. And, my comeback to that is given based on what? Sometimes we don't even have performance management tools. So what are you basing that step-up on, bruv? So, I've always done interview process, highest scorer, job done. If you do have PDRs in place and you do have transparency within your department, if I think about the first workplace I was at, it was quite clear who was going to get the step-ups because you'd see them being trained and nobody had a fucking problem with it because it was quite clear who was your good people. So I think it really depends on your environment that you're in, and that might determine who you pick into that role. But I guess coming back to it, it's about the pay bit. So it's, like I say, usually a percentage of. Salary banding. How controversial is that fucker? Going back to the first company, it was so transparent. I didn't even think anything of it. Just didn't. It was just there. I knew what it was. Yeah, since leaving there, I realize it's a big thing. Look, me personally, I think it's a big thing if you hide it. That's what I think it is. If you have that transparency there, as I said earlier, people know what they're working to. Okay, you might get people pissed off that this role is in that bracket, but they get over it. And if they don't like it, they can fuck off. I don't get it. So look, that's me anyway. So the first thing you need to understand is what method is used to do your banding and grades in your business. So for example, your company might just use the expert HR tool. It might use Towers Willis Watson, Hay grading. There's all different models out there, but it's important that you understand it. Now, you don't necessarily need to know how to do it, but you do need to know that methodology, just purely so you can work out how you job spec, I guess, and how you sort of, I don't know how to explain this as a HR person. You'll be able to kind of price a job quite easily, I think. Like, you can usually price a job off your head. The last company I was at, we had a reward guy who was quite strict. So we had to earn the salaries. He was helpful, you know. He always told us what was missing and stuff, and gave us really good pointers. He must have been pissed off with me by the time I had to keep going back, but it's important that you do understand the parameters. It's there for a reason, because it gives you the independence and it gives you the opportunity to think about what market you'll be looking at when you're going for your new replacement shiny person, or if it's a new role. But make sure you do your grading activity before you start advertising roles. Don't make the mistake I've seen. Understand the employee roadmap. That's quite key. And when I mean that, I mean, what is the journey? So how do they get from entry role to CEO? And there should always be a roadmap. Obviously, it doesn't mean every single person's going to get there, but there should be an awareness of it, and there should be an awareness of what grades they're aiming for, what kind of bonus they unlock, etc. The next thing is, where is it held, that information? And is it public? Because again, like I say, the first place is public. The thing to kind of factor is that, you know, if you advertise externally with the salaries, then people are going to see anyway. Like, that's the bit I never sort of understood. If you're advertising externally with the salaries, people will see that shit anyway. So why are we being difficult? I don't know. The other thing is to ensure you keep your employees within pay scales. Now, the first place I was at was very good at this. If you step down, you step down. Last company, again, same thing. This one I've not seen it, so I don't have any reference. But I do know of companies where people step down and retain management salaries. Like, they still do that now. And I know there's the whole red circle thing, but that's a forced on situation. I'm talking about people actually just stepping down and protect their salary. That's a madness. I don't condone it. So always make sure you keep employees within the pay scale. Now, you will have people on older contracts who haven't signed new contracts, or they're on 2P. So it's always important to understand what their T's and C's are. That's what I'm learning. So 2P is a completely new world to me, and I'm slowly learning that T's and C's are important. It's not so much that it's not important. It's more about what they've agreed to keep as part of 2B, how that's administered, where that's kept. So yeah, you know, you need to have awareness of it, and you need to know the pay scales. So yeah, don't go outside the pay scales. I mean, the last company I was at, they had a notorious problem with it when I first started. People would just be out of pay scales every other day, like literally every other day. It's like, come on. People just getting offered like 10k more. And this was all around retention as well. So this is why I have a thing about retention, I guess. But that's not good, because what you do is you move your base up. And if people get awareness of it, of course they can challenge for that as well. So, you know, if the job is that specific grade and that salary banding, then you stick to within it. If it was more, then you would have done that for everyone. The benefits, you know, I guess this is a bit I don't understand, yeah? So benefits are displayed. and they're attached to grades. Mind blown. So why is the salaries not? But yeah, so just make sure you understand where the benefits are kept and how these are promoted, if you like. Knowing what is automatic as well. So like pension schemes. Is your rate higher? Do they get into it, etc.? Job description changes. So if there's a change to the job description, the role should be regraded. So grading is usually done by a panel it's usually an agreed panel who are trained on how to do job evaluations. We cover that in season 3, so I won't go into it. Make sure that these are added to the pay maps as well. So your company will have a pay map, which will basically have all the roles, all the versions of it, and all the different various changes as well. So it's quite important you understand where that information is kept. Purely because sometimes you get people draw reference to what it was back in the day, and you can just go and find out what it was back in the day. Simple as pie. Be aware of the market rate. That's quite important. Now, I think with remote working being much more available, and I'm seeing it now as well, like roles are being advertised as being able to work remotely from anywhere. Don't get a designated place so much anymore. So it is quite important to understand that we do have the old thing called the London waiting. So if you're working in London, there's in some companies a premium for that. I know in my last place I was told that because I worked in London I had a different rate, but I was still the least paying. But anyway, London waiting. To be honest, I don't know if that's still a thing. I mean, the last company I worked for, it was quite the same across the board. But I think they'd done a lot of work on that, and that was a whole journey through the transformation as well. So, be aware of the salaries in the location and in the sector. Your competition as well. It's important to know that. If you poach people from the competition, do ask them for information. I do all the time. Like in my last workplace, if we used to take someone from the competitor, I'd be like, "Can you share me your bonus scheme?" Just to see, because obviously someone who's coming to you is more willing to share. I guess I'm not even allowed to say that, right? I'm probably not even allowed to say that, but that's what I do. There we go. But knowing the market trend is important. But don't get carried away. Because, I do see people who listen to their recruitment friends, and if your recruitment friends trying to get a premium, I don't know necessarily they're always going to give you the information that truly reflects if they're adding in their 15% premium. That's just me personally. Maybe I'm a cynic, but you do have tools available like Expert HR, or if you're using like a Towers Watson or HeyGrade, they will have competitive market comparisons and stuff like that. So there are ways to find out. But look, the reality is you can just go and look on any job board and find them anyway, right? What I say is that when you're looking at the market rate, think about your own organization and structure though. Think about the head counts and stuff like that as well. Like, I think that's something that really goes amiss. People sort of think, oh yeah, the going rate is 50k. But what they're not looking at is that 50k role manages 100 people and does like X amount of legal and compliance and whatever. Various different things. And your location has 5 people and doesn't have half the responsibility. So be mindful of that as well. If you're going to start looking at things, start looking at job descriptions you can get them to, especially if you're working with a manager who's come from external as well. They seem to forget that they're not always in the same place. Sometimes I can be accused of not remembering that I am in the same place. So I just want to touch on some stuff around equal pay. So I've never actually been involved in an equal pay dispute. So I just want to put that out there. I'm not going to say that I have experience or this is anything from experience. Well, I do have some experience with what I'm about to say, but I'm not the expert. Let's just be clear. So look, the first thing is companies are to disclose every year their gender pay gap. So that happens every year. You have to be a business of a certain size. It'd be helpful if I actually put that in my notes. But yeah. If you're a company, I can't remember what the actual number is. It's if you're over a certain amount of employees, you have to disclose this information. Definitely got to be if you're over 2,000. I know that. The next thing is to understand how pay is awarded and what for. This is very important. So I've touched on things around salary increases and stuff, but you do really need to understand this, because if the consistency is not there, especially in your own area of responsibility, then you are going to have a fucking problem. And especially usually HR are one of the ones that sits on that sort of decision-making tree. So if you're allowing it, bro, that's on you. That's what you got to think about. Because we're the ones that are supposed to stop these managers from going reckless and giving everyone 20K. Think about it. This is a personal opinion. Don't all attack me at once. Nobody answered the comments anyway. I believe bonus should not be paid for doing the job. That's me. I don't agree with that. If you're doing what your contract and training says you should be doing and your job description, then how the fuck you getting a bonus? For me, a bonus is above and beyond. Car allowance. Woohoo! If it's linked to a grade, they should be getting paid. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did. I don't know. That's what I'm going to say about that one. Overtime. Guys, pay the overtime. Like, I'm not going to lie, the last place I worked at, like, apparently working for free was a thing, bro. Sorry, that's the first work company I worked at. You know, I've repeated this story so many times, or maybe I haven't, I don't know. And it's not really linked to this, but I'm going to share it anyway. I remember I got told by a senior manager, this is when I was a manager, not in HR. I got told that because I only did 12 hours a day, contracted 8, that I didn't have an opinion. And we didn't get paid that either, yeah, because we were managers. You didn't get paid. The other thing I got told was, I remember this one, yeah. So like, we used to do like trading shifts. So you have to trade the building, if you like. And some dickhead, he wasn't a dickhead, he knew what he was doing anyway. He used to actually schedule. So I'd maybe be doing like a 5 to 1 shift, but he'd schedule me in to do trading at 4 till 7 in the evening. Fuck is that about, bro? Like, and then when you used to challenge it, it'd be like, well, you're a manager. Yeah? Anyway, off topic. I'm not scarred by that, clearly. Worked hours. Now then, so this comes back to the first company again. So I wonder if anyone ever challenged them if they get this. So one thing that's quite important to know is that if you work hours and you don't get paid for those hours, and if you add all those hours up and take it away from your payment for that period of time, if your salary hourly rate becomes less than either the minimum wage or living wage, you have the right to make a claim. So you think about it, there's roles out there. I was one of them where you worked, 60, 70-hour weeks at times. And your take home wasn't that much. And if you did the math, you probably was getting less than minimum wage. That's a claim. That's a claim. The other thing is, if ACAS contact you about a pay review in-house, think about it. Is it worth going to a tribunal for? When I say pay review, this is like, I don't know, sick pay, not being paid, or holiday or something. Just think about it. Is it worth everyone's fucking time? I'll be honest, I've only ever lost one battle. Now, I have to point out, I didn't have all the information available. So some guy contracted an illness while abroad. And I can't remember what happened. No, I do remember how he got it. That's fucked up. We're not going to share that. But anyway, he got an illness while away. And he came back, and my understanding, this illness was caught through fault of his own. But anyway, he'd basically, I can't remember, there was some sort of breakdown in the process or something like that. I think it was around certification. And for whatever reason, we decided not to pay the sick pay. We didn't have to. And the reality is what he did definitely meant he was going to get an illness. And so we took a line that we wouldn't do it. But anyway, I'm sure it was around sort of certification. So we didn't believe we had the appropriate... that's what it was. We didn't have certification. So he was adamant we did. And I was adamant we didn't because I didn't have it in the file. Anyway, this thing went on. And he was off for quite a while. He was really ill, to be fair. He had all the certificates and stuff afterwards, but unfortunately for a period of time he didn't. So we didn't pay it for that period of time. And it turns out that he fucking... Yeah. He definitely did provide certification. And it just bypassed me. And so I had to, when ACAS, after telling him we didn't have the evidence and all this and that, I had to back down and pay. But I did think to myself, is it worth it? Is it worth fighting? Because why bother? I mean, in this instance, we were wrong anyway. But the only annoying thing was he provided ACAS the documentation, but not us. And it was only when I dug further that we found it. I don't think it even made it to HR. That's how ridiculous it was. No one had sight of it. But anyway. And then the one that I've heard of more recently is collective disputes around pay. So I'll just leave it out there, ASDA. And I think that's probably going back now, 2018. But I think more of those things will happen. I think I might have even heard of it happening in another retailer, but I don't want to say names. But I know there was the ASDA piece. So if you're not familiar, it was around warehouse workers who worked in the warehouse getting paid more than the shop floor staff. And the shop floor staff basically said it should be equal pay. So, yeah. And so, that seems totally pointless because that's why I'm going to leave the podcast. So, that has been episode 9. We've only got one more episode to record of season 2 this week. So, this is the 1st of February at the time of recording, not the time of release. And yes, we designed a new logo. So if you follow us on LinkedIn, you would have seen the new logo. Not the final product, but just wanted to change it up, make it more appropriate. That sort of feels more appropriate. Season 3 has been mapped. So let's see. Mapping means I've given the sort of topic heads for each individual element of the podcast. So all 10 episodes. I don't know how we made 10, but we have. And we'll start writing that maybe next week. Got one more episode to record, which I'm hoping to do Wednesday this week. And we'll take it from there. So look, thanks for listening. This has been episode 9. Peace.